Well, hello and welcome back to another edition of the Andrew Eborn Show, where I'm joined yet again by Parry to talk about deep brain stimulation therapy. Quite a mouthful. How are you, Dawn?
Hello, Andrew. I'm very well. Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me back on again.
It's always a pleasure to have you. Talk to me then about your background with this in particular, because it started with a friend of yours who had Parkinson's, or still has Parkinson's. Talk to me about
Well,
that.
as we know, there's no cure. There's no actual cure. There's a lot of stem cell therapy going on to see whether or not it's, potentially curable. And no doubt one day it probably will be. But right now, no, there's no cure for Parkinson's. So this wonderful friend of mine, I used to have her work for me. She was my employee going back about 23 years, 24 years, something like that. Anyway, she eventually had to stop working for me because she was diagnosed with Parkinson's, but the Parkinson's had become so bad that she wasn't able to work anymore. The medication that Parkinson's sufferers take caused them dyskinesia as well, which is the shaking and trembling of limbs. Yeah, I mean, it's ironic because it starts with shaking and trembling, but then the medication also can cause dyskinesia, which makes people very twitchy and so on. But it's the lack of dopamine in the brain that causes all of those things in the first place. So they have to have the medication. Anyway, so this friend of mine, she got worse and worse and worse. I call her Susie Sue. I absolutely adore her. She's the funniest, most wonderful individual. Anyway, and she writes as well, but she's too shy to do anything more than just write the stuff. She's a very talented woman. Anyway, so Sue ended up in a wheelchair about 6 years ago. She was in a terrible state. I couldn't understand her when she spoke anymore, and life wasn't good for her. It was very poor. And I remember having the conversation with her once. What are your options here? Put yourself forward. Be a guinea pig for every single thing that's going, because the only way out now is death. It's all downhill from here. You've got to, just grab everything you can and go with it. Any opportunity that's there to help you with your Parkinson's disease. So she did. And she had the operation, which is deep brain stimulation therapy, where she had 8 electrodes implanted in her brain. And she then had the hardwired cabling brought around her neck and a remote control battery box implanted in her left breast. All a massive operation, took about 8.5 hours. And obviously while being under, this was all done by Professor Gill, this is really fantastic surgery, at the brain unit at Bristol's Southmead Hospital. And while she was undergoing this operation, they had to bring her back out of the, being sedated for a short while to make sure that all the electrodes were all in the right places and that, everything would work and move properly when stimulated electronically. Anyway, so after all of that, obviously, hell of a headache for a long time. And 6 weeks later, she had to go back to the brain unit. So it takes 6 weeks to ensure that the body doesn't reject the implant, both in the breast and in the brain, and the cabling and so on. So 6 weeks later, she goes back to the brain unit in a wheelchair. And remember, by this stage as well, she hasn't moved for several years now properly, and so has become huge, very, very overweight as well. She gets there and they switch her on. Now that darling, amazing, wonderful friend of mine got up, and it's almost making me feel quite emotional even talking about it now. She got up and she walked for the first time in years and pushed her own wheelchair out of the brain unit.
Good heavens. And so how long ago was this?
Now this was 6 years ago, nearly 6 years ago. So 5.5 years ago. Anyway.
So the Bristol, they were pioneering this initiative, were they? Or was it something that they've been trying
Yes,
to...
a very expensive operation. But now it's an operation that they do on people who, if the money's available, obviously, and several other factors come into it as well. So patients who either have any sort of neurological disease or issues or damage to the brain or whatever that causes impairment to movement. So the synapses aren't working properly and so on, for the brain to tell the body to move properly. Any of those sorts of patients, it's only when their medication is no longer working or doesn't work sufficiently for long enough periods of time that they can even be considered for this operation. No doubt.
Was this on the NHS or was it private, or how
it was on the NHS. No, it was on the NHS. I mean, everybody has the right to a decent quality of life, and there is nothing that is that's a precursor to having this type of neurological disease. We don't know; it could happen to any of us anytime.
Well, absolutely, and there's been classic cases like Muhammad Ali and Michael J. Fox, and my father actually suffered with Parkinson's as well.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And it's terrible. And I think anybody will clamber onto hope and look at the different treatments that are available. And obviously we can get the medical experts to clarify what's happening. But this is a treatment that obviously worked in your friend's case, which is great. How is she now?
In Susie Sue's case, she is she's lost. I ought to go back a little bit again. In June of 2016, Sue came to stay with me for the weekend. She's still here.
Oh, okay.
She moved in. Yes, she's still here, and she's lost 5.5 stone in weight on my healthy eating plans here at home, but obviously because she's able to move around now, and she can. There's so much that she can do properly, fully, independently, go out to the shops, all sorts of, everything. There isn't anything that she can't do now that she couldn't do 20 odd years ago. Let me explain as well how this works.
Yes, please.
She's recently gone into hospital and had a very quick operation to change the battery because her battery had become low. You can only recharge these batteries for a certain number of years. The last one was to last for, I think it was 5 years, and it still had plenty of space left in it. Obviously, they're not going to leave patients, right at the end of the battery's life. But it's interesting to see that this surgery is now being seen as so progressive and so important to the quality of people's lives, no matter what their neurological issues are, that the company we were talking, this is more product placement here, but Samsung, the telephone company, have got together with Medtronic. Can you see this? This is Medtronic. Yep. And inside is a Samsung. This is just like a normal Samsung phone. So we have a Samsung phone, but this is actually the controller that controls the pace of everything to do with Susie Sue's life. And this is another little box, if you can see here, which is the Bluetooth link that links to her implanted battery in her body. And then with this telephone, I move her up or down, depending on how much signal she might need. Now, we go for months without altering that at all, because obviously, when during lockdown, Sue got very concerned hearing the news all the time that, that it wouldn't be possible for her to go to hospital, possibly because of COVID and things like this. And so she turned her battery levels down. This new wonderful piece of kit and the new battery that's gone in. The new battery is meant to last for about 6 years before she needs another battery change. This new piece of kit is so much easier and better than the last. And as I say, linked with Samsung and Medtronic, the two have got together, and this is a massive life-changing thing for people like Sue who've got Parkinson's disease.
And really good news. And she's with you at the moment, but a little bit camera shy, I understand. But
well, the thing with an awful lot of people actually who do have neurological issues, and certainly people who have Parkinson's, when there are any other noises that they're not used to very often, or lights, or movement of lighting, sudden sounds, things like that, it makes the brain kind of spark off in a different direction. And so, there are elements of anxiety caused by anything, and I would never ever want to put my lovely friend into
Oh no,
any.
absolutely not. And so other people watching this program, how would they go about finding out more and whether they might be eligible?
Oh, well, if I were them, I would speak to your GP first of all. And I would certainly give people who've got neurological issues and are aware of them, then they need to call their brain unit. We're quite lucky here because we're not too far away. We're 16 miles away from Bristol. So for Sue, it's, we can get her to the hospital here if somebody drops out of needing their operation, which is exactly what happened for the changeover of her battery recently. But for many people, I think there are only 2 brain units possibly in the country. I know one is in North Wales, and the other, the finest of all, I'm pretty sure, is the one in Bristol. Serious cutting edge stuff.
Right.
So anybody, if they are already diagnosed with Parkinson's, I would say to them, go and inquire about it. Don't, and I contacted the brain unit and asked them, up until what age are people actually given the opportunity to have this operation? And they said aged 80.
Okay.
So if you are under 80 years of age and you want your quality of life made better, it's not for everybody. I mean, it doesn't work for everyone. Michael J. Fox, for example, you named him earlier. He's famously suffered dreadfully with Parkinson's disease for a number of years now. He again was very young when he was diagnosed with it, and in his case, this isn't the operation for him. It won't work for him. So for some people, it just won't work. But another person who has recently made it really very public that he has Parkinson's, the exact Kid Jensen,
Yeah.
And again, Kid Jensen, he's still young and certainly young enough to have this operation. Kid, go and find out about it and see if you can get it done, because you then don't need to have all the medication, because there are medications that will really debilitate you while controlling this disease. Sue, for example, now is taking far less Sinemet. Sinemet is the drug that replaces the dopamine that's missing. And of course, people who have Parkinson's, because the dopamine's missing in their body, without realizing it, we don't require very much dopamine at all. You and I and most people, so we can have our tea and coffee without sugar. We can not eat chocolates and biscuits and things like that. But for people who need dopamine in their body, that feel-good factor, it's the same with sex, chocolate, all these things. They all release dopamine. So people who are in need of that will eat lots of cakes and goodies and chocolates and things, which is why so often they get bigger and bigger.
Right. Okay. Well, as you say, rightly go and see the doctors. Things are advancing all the time. So even the age limit, I mean, talk to your doctor is the best thing to do, and see if it's the right treatment for you. I know the effects, and Kid Jensen has famously written in his book very bravely written about the effects. And it's not just the person concerned, but it is their family and friends and so on and so forth. So looking at these things, looking at the amazing advances in medicine, that there is some hope out there, is really helpful. Dawn Parry, thank you very much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you as well, Andrew.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So thank you again to Dawn Parry with some of the developments there about deep brain stimulation therapy. Do go and speak to your doctor, see if that might be suitable for you. It is always useful hearing from other people and their own experience. If you'd like to be a guest on the program, write to me at guests@Octopus TV. Don't forget, you can follow on all the usual platforms at Andrew Eborn, at Octopus TV, and also subscribe on YouTube and various other platforms as well. But for me, for now, thank you very much for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.